2021 off with a bang, which means going to bed early. I am on here to talk assistive technology and homeschool. And now I feel like that's a fancy term, but it's not, because you probably use it all the time and don't realize that you're using it. So it's like a big old long legal definition. The gist of it basically is that anything that's used to help in anything, with anything, the completion of a task. So any item, piece of equipment, whether you buy it and modify it, or make it, that is used to assist. Now, we use it all the time when we do speech to text on our phones. That would be assistive technology, right? Because you're not having to physically type it out. So it's helping you complete a task in an alternate way. We use it at home with our kids as far as a schedule. This is like the most common one you see in schools. Sometimes I have to catch myself being like, schools don't really use AT. They do, they don't realize they're using it. Schedules are a very common thing used in schools, and that is considered a form of assistive technology. Helps kids with organization. I have a kid who's like that. He needs very clear beginning and end. List goes on and on, right? Apps on our phones that control our heating and air conditioning, unlock our doors. Like that for us is a modern luxury. If you have a physical impairment, like that's how you access the world. If you can't use your hands or arms for whatever reason to unlock and lock a door. So that's essentially what assistive technology is. It is required by law to be something discussed or reviewed in an IEP. So you may be homeschooling, but still receiving services at your local school for special education. You may be doing it yourself at home, but, or, your child may not even need special education. This is kind of like one of my passion points, is that we often, in the field of the very few schools who really truly fully use assistive technology, there are smaller unicorn schools in there who like unleash it to everyone. So that's kind of one of my big passions, is it should be especially available for kids who need extra supports. IEPs have a very narrow definition of who qualifies, so you leave a lot of kids out, but everyone should be able to use them, because that's life. We use tools that help us execute things more efficiently and fast all the time. So I'm going to show you an example of a form of AT that I use. So they kind of will say different categories: no tech or low tech, mid tech, high tech. Because you hear the word technology in it, we often think of a computer. And like I said, it's anything that helps with the completion of a task or the doing of a task. So this right here is a communication board. So I worked in as a speech therapy assistant, and I worked specifically, well, I got the chance one year to work specifically with self-contained. So it's basically kids it's a very small classroom. Well, it's supposed to be a small number of children in a classroom, 6 to 8, who have very highly specialized needs. So I worked in an autism room, and I worked in, our school labeled it moderate disabilities. So this right here is a communication board. So those students either couldn't physically communicate because of some sort of the way their articulators were shaped, or they just didn't have a strong grasp on language, and so they needed the support. So these are just Velcro, you can Velcro them on and off for them to have a voice and to speak. And there's iPads out there that have got amazing programs. So that is a large paper Velcro representation of a program called Touch Chat. There's all sorts of programs. It's how I got into assistive technology. It's what I thought assistive technology was, until I went to a conference and met Chris Bugaj, who is mostly on Facebook. I don't know, he maybe has an Instagram. But it just opened my eyes to this amazing world of assistive technology, and how I don't know, you watch all these TV shows with kids doing all these cool things in school, and then it's not the reality of school. And you're like, oh, it could be though. It could be. So I'm going to just show you this. This is kind of an example of what it should look like in an IEP meeting. I've never seen it. I've never seen it like this. So when it comes to assistive technology, what you're looking at, so this is actually from a meeting, a training I did. We had a kid with motor function issues. Is what are, like, he has a motor function impairment, but what are the very specific things he needs done? So what you also frequently would run into in education would be, it's cheating, but it's not. So we have to address, what is your goal? So one of my big passions, reading. If they are reading and the assignment is about their comprehension and not the actual reading, do they physically have to read the book? No, we just get so stuck in these ways. And that may be awesome and amazing for some kids, but not all kids. So let's give them options. I'm a big fan of menus. Give them a menu where they could choose. You can physically read the book. I honestly, if they can listen to a book, great. I don't think there's a lot of, it's easy to get distracted. If you, like, I know for me, when I do an audiobook, I can get distracted very easily. So I suggest that they still get the text, whether it's digitally or a physical book and the audio, like give it to them together. There's even programs out there that will track the words for them as they read it. And for some kids who struggle reading, the tracking while hearing audio can help improve their reading because they start learning whole word recognition. So there's a lot of benefits to it. And if it is a more comfortable style for your kid to read doing both, why not let them? Like, what is your goal at the end? Now, if your goal is to help their actual reading, then you're not going to want to give them an audiobook. But if your goal is just for them to learn to enjoy reading or to answer something about content, use the tool. It's something you can use and it's available. My thing is, like, you guys all remember, like, when I took statistics and calculus and we had to learn all this stuff by hand. I remember what was the Pythagorean theorem, having to learn it by hand. There's a value to learn things by hand. And then in college, I learned how to do it on a calculator. And I was like, why did I waste endless amounts of hours doing this by hand when I could have done it by a calculator? And you know what? The world didn't end and calculators didn't disappear. In fact, like, it's on my phone. I can use a calculator on my phone. It's gotten even easier, and kids are closer to a calculator nowadays on their electronics than they were when I was a kid. So sometimes I think we have to break through that mental barrier of the world's gonna end, you need to know how to do it by hand. Like, not that you shouldn't learn, but oh my God, here's the thing. You can learn it at any point because it's on the internet now. So maybe it's not that important sometimes to learn, like, if you're not going to a career that uses the Pythagorean theorem, why? Like, you can learn it later. There's so much free information on the internet. So I just think sometimes we have to ask ourselves, even when you're homeschooling, I think we ask ourselves this question a lot when we homeschool, but what is the point? What is the point of learning? Is it to be, like, I feel like sometimes we get stuck in these old systems of this is what it's supposed to look like. You're supposed to read a physical book. Now, I prefer a physical book, but when it's fiction, give it to me audio all day long. Or sometimes I go through busy seasons in life and that's what I need. I prefer to type things out, but I don't know why, I just do. But sometimes I have to use text to speech. So what is the point of why you're schooling? For me, it's to get curiosity, to foster curiosity is the number one reason for us. And to love to learn. So assistive technology is another way for us to incorporate tools to support those things. So what does it look like at home and in homeschool? You may already have this. I did not do that this year. And actually I saw Tori with the Ogles, I hope I'm saying it right, Oglesby Ohana. she had on her YouTube channel using a schedule. And right, it was just a notebook where she just wrote down what they needed. We will be trying that. So we've been using the good and the beautiful. I'm going to talk about tomorrow how we're going to kind of change things up. The thing I like good and the beautiful needs its own whole talk, good and bad. What works for my son is that it very clearly, like, he can look and see the beginning and the end, and he needs that. So when I say schedule, it can look like a lot of things. It could be pictures. It could be Velcro things that they pull off. Sometimes we do this with just doing chores. It could just be a couple notes. You need to do reading, English, math, done. For my son, he needs it broke down more because he likes to count how many things he has to do. It can be alternate seating. What's funny is my son is a mover and a shaker. He has a label of ADHD. And oddly enough, a yoga ball, which we commonly use, does not work for him. It just made it worse. What works for him is sitting at the dining room table in a very close setting. That actually for him, it's just like that closeness works best. And it was funny when I think about it, going back to preschool, that's how I was too. The preschool teacher would say he is in her lap. That is the best way to get him engaged. It may be we haven't tried one of these yet, but like a wiggle. It's just like a big circular, kind of like if you took a yoga ball and just chop the first part of it off. And some of them might have little spikies, like those sensory balls. They can have different tops to them, but it allows them to kind of wiggle and get some sensory input. You can give them something that causes them to be off balance. And so it's just OT. You can see an OT if you have questions about that kind of stuff, and a PT, because it engages different muscles, which then engages the brain more. So that's all forms of assistive technology, right? Because it's helping them to be able to do a task, sit and learn. Pencil grips, those can be a form of assistive technology. The paper type, so not all kids, white lined paper is not great for all kids. Some kids, this is something I had to learn in college. Number one, I needed color. The whole blue and black ink thing didn't work for me. I needed to write in colorful ink, and because that way my brain separated things and could remember that was the pink stuff. Or I could use colored paper, and you'd be surprised at how many kids actually will learn better if you change these small things like that. Colored paper, or the lines are bigger, or some of them have texture to them. There's a bajillion tools out there that you can use to help your child learn. Taking tape, if you're doing math, and marking it off on your table, for each place value. There's all sorts of special rulers out there. There's a lot of tools. There's coin calculators. You just have to, if you type in assistive technology and whatever you're looking for, writing supports. Again, there's so many different types of papers out there that are helpful. Even sometimes, if they're reading and you get them a book digitally, this is one of my favorite tools. Don Johnston has one of my favorite ones. You can get them for free though, in your Google, I forget what they're called, but extensions. You can get digital formats that you can change the color background. You can make it black paper on white. You can do all sorts of colors, rainbow colors. Sometimes we think kids just don't like reading, but sometimes it's we pretty much, when it comes to books, have one set way of giving them that information, which is black print on white paper. And this just doesn't work for everybody. So one thing I would encourage you is on YouTube, there is a video called The Myth of Average. It's an excellent video. And basically the presenter, which is kind of funny because I think he was a high school dropout and then now he's a Harvard or Yale professor or something, because he was super smart, but school just didn't interest him. But he talks about this story about the U.S. military, I don't know if it was the 50s, late 40s, 50s, we're having this problem with pilots constantly crashing planes. And Lockheed Martin and all these places were well, we make it for the average pilot. So the military decided to study it, and they looked at thousands of pilots, and it turned out there was no such thing as average. You want to know where we got adjustable seats from in our cars? was from that experiment, because there is no such thing as average. People with the same leg length don't have the same arm length or same shoulder width or, torso length. There is no average. And so that's where the adjustable seats came in. And it was funny because these businesses were like, no, that can't be done. And then look, here we are 50 years later. So when we talk about teaching to the average child, no, you're talking about teaching to nobody. No one. There is no such thing as average, which gets back to my point is, what is the point of educating? Because we do like these in school, it's this mass education system, and we call it, like, if you have a disability and you qualify, it's an individualized education plan. But shouldn't, like, every kid have it? Sometimes I want to be like, we got to slow down. We got to slow down. This is what I find myself in homeschool. It's a challenge for me. Slow down. Individualize education. Are we like in a race to see who gets to know the most first? Like, what is really the point and the goal? Because we're not educating. And I can tell you, as a homeschool parent who has had light shed on them working as a speech therapist, and I am a master's degree dropout in assistive technology, I still get caught up in that conditioning of what school needs to look like in order for my child to, I don't know. But anyways, we are going to be using more assistive technology going forward. Like, we'll be using, because I am going to change things up, we're going to be using the written schedule. And that works actually really well for us for chores. My kids can see written the chores they have. That's how they get like their 30 minutes of iPad or Nintendo time, is you do your chores. Let me tell you, they are so motivated. They wake up and ask me, what are my chores today? Those things really work. So we're going to continue to use those. I think I might have talked about on here. I really want to start using Co-Writer with my kids. That's going to go hand in hand with another tool we're going to be bringing in. So we're really excited for 2021. But if you have any questions about assistive technology, you can leave a comment down below. I don't know that there's any AT person who has all the answers out there, but it's a really cool community because there are a lot of groups and supports out there that you can go to and ask for help, and everyone will like dump on you what they know. So there's definitely a solution out there. And like I said, if you're feeling like you're struggling with something, investigate. Like, it could just be something simple as you need better seating, you need color, you need, I don't know. For some kids, like, again, reading and writing are my two really big ones, because I feel like we so miss the boat. I'm always going to teach my kids to write by hand, but it's like, what's the goal? Is it for them to communicate a story, or are you practicing handwriting? If it's to communicate a story, mix it up, transcribe for them, give them a program where they can do speech to text, or can they do something more visual like in PowerPoint? There's just like so many amazing things out there, which it benefits them now to use it and learn it now, so that in the future, as they get older, and we talk a lot about here pivoting, like, you have to learn new skills and pivot. They've got these really great base skills of all this technology and how to look at things differently and use them differently. So anyways, that is like a little introduction into assistive technology. Comment down below if you have any questions, and